And welcome back to Fun Key French with Monsieur Nile, the English guy who thinks he's French. This is part 3 of French verbs in the present tense, and the session will look particularly at irregular verbs. Are you still hanging in there? Are you still with this? It gets easier and easier as we spot the patterns which will help with our verbs and will help us with other verb tenses. So as you will remember from the previous 2 tutorials, to use a French verb in the present tense, you knock off the to ending of the verb and add the correct ending for the pronoun you are using. For example, the regular verb parler, to speak, used with I, the pronoun I, becomes je parle. You take the ER off the infinitive, parler, P-A-R-L-E-R, and add the letter E, which corresponds with je. Please refer to previous part 1 and part 2 for the full version. Thankfully, the majority of French verbs are regular, but the minority of irregular ones is quite large, and a number of these verbs are verbs that we use regularly. For example, the 3 most commonly used verbs in any language are to be, to have, to go. Others are to do, to make, to see, to say, to get, to come, to want, to be able. The majority of these verbs are irregular in English and French. And to understand what irregular means, let's use an English example to begin with. A foreign student would be forgiven for looking at the verb to be and thinking that it translates into the present tense as I be, you be, he be, but of course it doesn't conform to regular rules and translates as I am, you are, he is, she is, etc. The same comparison can be made with the French verb to be, which is être. You don't knock off the ER ending, the RE ending, I should say, spot the deliberate mistake. You don't knock off the RE ending and add endings to a stem of ET. Instead, we have to learn its irregular form. Je suis, I am. Tu es, you are. Il est, elle est, he, she is. Nous sommes, we are. You are, in the plural. You are, and then ils and elles sont, which is the they in the plural. Let's have another example. Avoir, to have. We use this verb so much. J'ai, I have. Tu as, you have. Il, elle a, she, he has. Don't forget it can be it as well. He, she, it has. Nous avons, we have. Vous avez, you have. Ils ont, elles ont, O-N-T, they have. The present tense translation into English can also be I am having, you are having, and so on. The verb to go, aller, is an extremely useful verb, not just in its own right. For example, I am going home, but also as an auxiliary, or if you like, a verb which introduces what is going to happen. For example, in English, I am going to speak. Same construction in French, je vais parler. Parler, the infinitive ending in er, I am going to speak. Nous allons manger, we're going to eat. We use this construction all the time in English and French, which is why it is a top 10 verb in terms of usage. How about je vais aller? I am going to go. The verb to go used twice there, next to each other, but don't despair. Often a large part of the verb conforms to the regular pattern. E.g., nous allons, nous avons are pretty similar to what you would expect from previous knowledge. Here are a few more examples of irregularities. Devoir, to have, je dois. Partir, to leave, je pars, P-A-R-S. Venir, to come, je viens. All very commonly used verbs which are irregular but are not so different to the basic pattern you have learned when forming the present tense of regular verbs. So do practice putting verbs into the present tense. Think of how we do it in English, and this will help you to do it in French. Try to be aware of the verbs we use a lot in English and learn their French equivalents. And a big advantage of mastering the present tense is that it will be hugely helpful when you learn other tenses, which you will, won't you? Because you feel inspired now. Please look out for verbs part 2 with Monsieur Nile when funky French. I will be talking about reflexive verbs. À bientôt, mes amis. À tout à l'heure. See you soon.